Good morning, Rangata.
Good morning,
Morning,
Archana.
everybody.
I see that Jasmine has not yet joined. Anyway, so we can start. The recording has started, so we have to read. We have already read it. Okay, so I start reading each sentence and we'll discuss it. So, remember, Swayambhava is trying to find the origin of falsehood and evil. To again slightly make a resume to summary of whatever we have read until now, he has told us earlier that in the involution, we are starting from the consciousness. We are starting from omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Therefore, there is a diminution, but there is no distortion. So, this is the involutionary ladder coming down and manifesting the physical world. Here in this ladder, there is no distortion, and they are called what are called them typal worlds. There is no evolution in these worlds. Life worlds and mental worlds and spiritual worlds, all these worlds are there, supramental world, and finally Satchidananda. In fact, we don't know what is there in the Satchidananda because there may be many planes. The divine being infinite, it goes on. So, the human effort to reach the divine has gone right up to the supramental level. But beyond that, there is a certain vagueness. We don't know. Okay, so it's known as the unknown. In our scriptures, it is a Turiya, the fourth. Okay, there is a gross world, there is a subtle world, there is a causal world, and there is a Turiya which nobody has been able to go. Maybe they have gone, but they can't come back to give a report. Okay, so in the involutionary ladder downwards, there is no distortion. Then Srimdana starts discussing the evolutionary ladder, beginning from the inconscient, then comes matter, then comes life, mind, and then the spiritual planes of consciousness as it goes on. So he's trying to find where falsehood and origin, evil is coming. So in matter, there is only one. So there is no question of falsehood or evil. Then when life comes in, he's now looking at the knowledge aspect, error and knowledge. So when life comes in, it is largely the involutionary intuitional plane that comes down and guides from behind the scene. The animal doesn't have intelligence, but the intuition that comes down into the animal, it becomes instinct, and its actions are almost flawless. Almost flawless. They know how to build a nest, they know how to get food, they know when to migrate down south to avoid the winter. All these things they know, not consciously, not mentally, but instinctively. Okay. So next he talks about, so the he has also told us that in the evolutionary ladder upwards, the source of knowledge is twofold. One is the involved knowledge already in the inconscient. Okay, he calls it the subliminal. So in the subliminal, the knowledge is guiding you from behind. Okay, in the animal, it guides very well. But when we come to mind, the mind is overshadowing the instinct. Again, we get back to the image of the. We get back to the image of the daylight hiding the stars. At night, the stars are visible. At night, the night of mental consciousness, the involutionary instincts are very visible in the animal. But when daylight comes in, human mental consciousness comes in, the instinct gets hidden, just like the stars get hidden at night. Okay, so this is what we are going to read now. And we are also starting from the bottom. So error is already there at the animal level because you're starting from the inconscience and you don't know where you're going. So naturally error is possible. And error can become falsehood slowly. That's the way he's analyzing the thing. So when human intelligence comes in, it gets one more additional source of consciousness and yet also error. That's what he's saying. So I read each sentence and we'll see what he's saying. Clear, na? He is going so systematically and he is explaining to us everything in detail. I'm reading each sentence. When human intelligence adds itself to the animal basis, this basis still remains present and active. The instinct is there, even in human beings. It is there, but it gets covered up. Okay? When human intelligence adds itself to the animal basis, this basis still remains present and active. In two ways. Okay, the animal part, the animal psychology also applies to man. Okay, much. Sremdo says that there is not very much difference between the animal body and the human body except the mind. That's all. Largely it's the same. Okay. It is largely changed, subtilized, and uplifted by conscious will and intention. The automatic life of instinct and vital intuition diminishes. So if they're saying diminishes, in other words, even men can have intuition, but it's not very common. Okay. Sometimes we speak of it as a gut feeling. When you meet somebody or you have a new situation, you don't know how to. So sometimes when the intuition is there, you call it a gut feeling. I know that this should be done in this way. Okay? But it largely changed, subtilized, and uplifted by conscious will and intention. The automatic life of instinct and vital intuition diminishes and cannot keep its original predominant proportion to the self-aware mental intelligence. Okay. Note the word self-aware. Okay. We are, man, when developed, is quite conscious of himself as an entity. The animal is not. Its consciousness is always going out. It's not even very conscious of its own existence. Okay. But the human being also, there are at a very, very undeveloped stage, human beings also are, mostly their attention is going outwards. They are not conscious of their own existence. Okay. At a very, very crude level. Most human beings are conscious of their separate existence. Self-aware mental intelligence. Intuition becomes less purely intuitive. It diminishes. The instinct in man diminishes. Even when there is still a strong vital intuition, its vital character is concealed by mentalization. There is a phenomenon, as I told you, of the daylight, strong daylight, shutting out the stars. We don't see the stars. It is there in us, but we don't see it. And mental intuition is most often a mixture, not the pure article, for an alloy is added to make it mentally current and serviceable. So, mentally current and serviceable for practical purposes. Okay? The mental alloy is added. And what is that? That's the physical mind. The physical mind. In the animal also, the surface consciousness can obstruct or alter the intuition. But because its capacity is less, it interferes less with the automatic, mechanical, and instinctive action of nature. Intelligence is less in the animal, and that's why the instinct is more prominent. That's what it is. Yes, tell me.
Which page number it is? 644, no? Because we were doing this, it's in the field of cognition.
637 in CWSA. It is there on the screen. Oh, yes. You're on the phone, huh? Okay.
No, Rangada, this is in the field, that paragraph, no?
Which edition do you have, Kiran? Do you have SABCL or do you have CWSA?
No, SACW.
Rangada, it is page 644. This is in the field of cognition. Correct.
But Rangada is reading different para, the same para.
I am reading the para when human intelligence.
Rangada, the paragraph is, this is in the field of cognition.
Page 644.
We have read it, but discussion is remaining. We have to redo it.
Well, the chat on this one is telling me.
This is in the field. Yeah, you left the chat last week, so I just copy and paste here.
So tell me, settle the matter.
Page 644, Angada.
Okay, what is the beginning of the para?
This is in the field of cognition.
Oh, just one second. Yes, you are right. We have read all this already. Okay, okay. I forget because there are so many alignment classes. Which one it is? Just one second. This is the field of cognition, huh?
Yes.
Angada.
Okay.
You are reading this, then is the origin of nature, and you are
Oh, so you are saying something else again.
No, Rangada, you are
this-
on the right page. She's saying you were reading that. So now you have got the 644. This is in the field of cognition. You have to read from there. You have to redo from there.
Okay. So, have you read it already?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I should have been interrupted long ago. Because I go by the chat on the screen. But most of you are on the phone, huh? So you don't see the chat, I think. That's the whole problem.
No.
Okay, Kiran.
Okay.
I'm starting this is in the field of cognition. So now, Chandra is saying this is in the field of cognition. That means the acquisition of knowledge, okay, in whatever form. But the same law applies to will and action. Okay, so we have been talking about knowledge, but now there is also action. Okay, so out of ignorance, a wrong consciousness is created, which gives a wrong dynamic reaction to the contact of persons, things, happenings. So when error has come in because of the starting from the lower level, where error comes in at the animal level, much less than in the human level. Consciousness also increases in the human beings, but also error also increases. That's almost sounds contradictory, but it is true. Okay, both are there at a higher level. So now he is saying that there is also the question of action. If you have knowledge, you will act according to your knowledge. So now he's concentrating on the knowledge action. Okay, this is in the field of cognition, but the same law applies to will and action. Remember, Satchidananda, Sat, Chit, Shakti. He has been talking about Chit, now he is talking about Shakti. Okay? Out of ignorance, a wrong consciousness is created, which gives a wrong dynamic reaction with the contact of persons, things, happenings. Our knowledge is defective, and therefore our action also is defective. The surface consciousness develops the habit of ignoring, misunderstanding, or rejecting the suggestion to action or against action that come from the secret inmost consciousness, the psychic entity. So, the psychic entity, if we were conscious, then we would do the right action. But because we don't have, we ignore that. The surface consciousness develops the habit of ignoring, misunderstanding, or rejecting. Now, Surendra is saying something very interesting. The surface consciousness develops the habit of ignoring and misunderstanding. It's very interesting what he's saying, because the suggestion is that in childhood, okay, very often in childhood, your innocence and your lack of, social conditioning allows the psychic to act. Okay, so but you get into the habit because of the parental and societal education, if you want, or rather miseducation. Parental and societal miseducation, you lose the contact with the psychic being in childhood, and slowly you start ignoring. Look very carefully, we're saying develops the habit. Okay, so you get out of the psychic consciousness. I'm not saying the psychic consciousness is full in everybody, but in childhood it is more prominent than in the adulthood. That is certain. Okay. Ignoring, misunderstanding, or rejecting suggestions to action or against action that come from the secret inmost consciousness, the psychic entity. It answers instead to unenlightened mental and vital suggestions or acts in accordance with the demands and impulsions of the vital ego. The vital ego. Here, this second of the primary conditions of the evolution, the law of a separate life being affirming itself in a world which is not self to it, comes into prominence and assumes an immense importance. Okay? So, you remember he said long ago that there are two sources of knowledge. One is the inner source of knowledge from the subliminal, and the other is the source of knowledge from the physical world coming from outside. The first one comes from inside, and the second one comes from outside. Our education, our contact with the world, it teaching you many things. So that's the source. Now, this is what he's saying. Here, the second of the primary conditions of the evolution, the law of a separate life being. Okay? When we think of ourselves as separate from everybody else, okay, separate life, affirming itself in a world which is not self to it. Okay? Which is not self to it when the world is not self to you. When is the world self to you? When you are in the cosmic consciousness. But in an ordinary condition, you are not in the cosmic consciousness. So you assert your own existence against the world, whereas you should be acting with your own nature with the world, but we do it against the world. They have said those words elsewhere. Okay, so that's the whole problem. So self-affirm, separate self-life being, affirming itself in a world which is not self to it. It becomes self to it in the cosmic consciousness, comes into prominence and assumes an immense importance. The vital ego and the mental ego asserts itself against the universe, against this outside society. It is here that the surface vital personality or life self asserts its dominance, and this dominance of the ignorant vital being is a principal active source of discord and disharmony, a cause of inner and outer perturbations of the life, a mainstream of wrongdoing and evil. So, the vital is the source of all these problems, very clearly. He has told us earlier also, but now it is this. Okay. The natural vital element in us, insofar as it is unchecked or untrained or retains its primitive character, is not concerned with truth or right consciousness or right action. It is concerned with self-affirmation, with life growth, with possession, with satisfaction of impulse, with all satisfactions of desire. Okay? So, in other words, the vital is not interested in knowledge. It's only interested in itself, its own self-interest. Possession, affirmation, and insisting on its own desires. This main need and demand of the life self seems all important to it. You want success in the world, it's very important to it. It would readily carry it out without any regard to truth or right or good or any other consideration. But because mind is there and has these conceptions, because the soul is there and has these soul perceptions, it tries to dominate mind and get it by dictation, sanction, and order of execution for its own will of self-affirmation, a verdict of truth and right and good for its own vital assertions, impulses, desires. It is concerned with self-justification in order that it may have room for full self-affirmation. Shyamya has used a very interesting image. I will discuss the image. It's very interesting. Always, builds his images into the text. Okay, so here is the vital mind which is insisting itself. Okay, but it wants the approval of the mind. This is exactly, if you look at yourself, you will see that a desire is always being supported by the mind. Okay, 90% of the time. You always find a reason to support the desire. And so, yes, it is necessary. Okay. So this is what Shendra is saying. This main need and demand of the life self, vital, life self, seems all important to it. It would readily carry it out without any regard to truth or right or good or any other consideration. But there is a problem. The mind is there and the soul is there, and they interfere with the vital. Not very effectively, but they do. Okay? But because mind is there and has these conceptions, because the soul is there and has these soul perceptions, it tries to dominate mind and get from it by dictation a sanction and order of execution for its own will of self-affirmation. So note the image. Okay, there's a will and it has to be executed. Normally in the physical world, parents, when they are about to die or whatever, they make a will in favor of their children. So here in this case, the vital being is wanting a will to be signed, its own will, okay, its own desires. It wants it to be signed by the mind and the soul. Okay, and how does it do that? By dictation and sanction. Okay, an order of execution. Oh mind, oh psychic being, agree to what I want. That's the image. Okay, it dictates. The vital is dictating terms to the psychic and the mind, and it wants a sanction. Okay, and it will be executed also. So this is the will. This very interesting image is used. Okay, so this is what it is. In other words, the vital is insisting on its own, in its own way of doing things. Okay. But look at the image, how it is used. Fantastic. It also reminds you that spiritual knowledge is not through words, it is through images. Okay. It explains, and that is why you get these. So Srivastava is full of these because he is in spiritual knowledge, and everything comes through with images. Okay, the images are so interesting when you see and compare. In Savitri also, it is constantly happening. Okay, he's using images, and the whole reading and the text becomes so interesting if you look at the images and see the comparisons. Okay. So, a verdict of truth and right and good for its own vital assertions, impulses, and desires. It is concerned. What is it? The vital ego. It is concerned with self-justification in order that it may have room for full self-affirmation. It wants the approval. It doesn't want interference from the mind and the soul. And 90% of the time it gets it. It may be conscious, it may be unconscious also. Mostly it is unconscious, but sometimes the mind very consciously also sides with the vital. Okay? Consciously, yes, I know that this should not be done, but still I am going to do it. And this is something so prominent in human psychology that all over the world this has been done. Okay? In Western literature, I see the better, but I do the worse. It is there in many poets. Okay? Then in our own literature, Duryodhana telling Sri Krishna, I know what is dharma, but I cannot follow it. And I know what is adharma, and yet I follow it. So this is exactly the discussion of the psychological condition being spoken here. Okay? So I continue with the text. It is quite ready to ignore, but if it can get the assent of mind, that which is rare, but if it can get, it is common, but if it can get the assent of mind, the mind agrees with their desire, it is quite ready to ignore all these standards and set up only one standard. And what is that? The satisfaction, growth, strength, greatness of the vital ego. That's the only concern. The life individual needs place, expansion, possession of its world, dominance and control of things and beings. The description is so clear about the vital ego. Okay, it needs these things for itself and for those with whom it associates itself, for its own ego and for the collective ego. Sometimes it may want to do things for the collective. You may think that, oh, it is doing for others and not for itself, for the society. But that also is a collective ego. There is a own ego and there is a collective ego also. It needs them for its ideas, creeds, ideals, interests, imaginations. For it has to accept. Each of these you examine carefully and see what he's saying. It will be very interesting if you look at it very carefully. Ideas, okay? It needs the insistence of the vital for its ideas, but also for its creeds, also for its ideals, okay? Interests and imaginations. Everywhere the ego comes in. As Srebno says, the vital ego is built into the very structure of the texture of the being. Like the warp and woof, he says. It is there like the threads which are going crosswise. Huh? The threads go. So the ego is built into everything, into action, into thoughts, into the vital sensation, everywhere the ego is there. It needs these things for itself and for those with whom it associates itself, for its own ego and for the collective ego. There also is an ego. Actually, therefore, you can say in a sense, even patriotism, which is supposed to be something so precious in some cultures, it is nothing but the herd instinct. It is nothing but the collective ego. Okay? Because a time can come when nothing matters to you than the divine. So even your nation is not important. In fact, those who are very intelligent, nowadays the idea of nationalism is being looked down upon. Okay, so it's a retardatory idea. You must think more internationally, the whole humanity. So then the nation loses its primary importance. Okay, these are all very interesting things which one has to think about. Okay. I read the next sentence. It needs them for its ideas, creeds, ideas, interests, imaginations. For it has to assert these forms of I-ness and minus. I-ness and minus even for the collective, and impose them on the world around it. Or if it is not strong enough to do that, it has to at least to defend and maintain them against others to the best of its power and contrivance. I won't go into it, but this is also a principle which is now being applied to the, I just mentioned it once, but I won't discuss it. It's a very touchy subject. Okay. I don't know if most of you know about it, but we have a Sri Aurobindo Center with relics in Ayodhya. Okay. And that is very near to the Ram Temple. They're almost very, very close. In fact, if you want to go to the Sadhanalaya, you have to go through the main road going to the Ram Temple. And there is a tussle. The government wants that land and they have offered us another plot, okay, another place where they will be able to shift the relics. But the ashram is resisting. There is a lot of discussion going on about that. But the same thing applies here also. Okay, if you look very carefully. Okay. I'm just mentioning it. But that is it. So I go to the next one. It may try to do it by methods it thinks or chooses to think or represent as right. It always thinks that what it is doing is right. It may try to do it by the naked use of violence, ruse. Ruse is cunning, okay? Falsehood, destructive aggression, crushing of other life formations. The principle is the same, whatever the means or the moral attitude. So this is the nature of the vital. So clear. And that is why the error is coming in. Error and falsehood. Okay. So he has identified very clearly the source of evil, falsehood, and error. And suffering also as a result. Destructive aggression, crushing or other life formations. And note the word ruse, cunning. Okay. Cunning used in the wrong sense. Okay. The principle is the same, whatever the means or the moral attitude. It is not only in the realm of interests, but in the realm of ideas and the realm of religion that the vital being of man has introduced the spirit and attitude of self-affirmation and struggle and the use of violence, oppression and suppression. Oppression and suppression. Intolerance, aggression. It has imposed the principle of life egoism on the domain of intellectual truth and the domain of the spirit. Even in the spirit, we'll have a look at all these one by one. Okay, it's so interesting. He's saying in the realm of ideas also, okay, there are philosophical ideas which clash against one another. Okay? Even in politics, you have democracy, oligarchy, aristocracy, so many different types of things. And each one militates against the other. Okay. Then you have socialism, communism, so all different. Each one trying to say that my method is the right one. Okay. Then he's saying in the realm of interest, interest is very clear. Okay. Whatever trade interest, for instance, okay, each one is insisting that this is the right way. Okay. Interest. But in the realm of ideas and realm of religion, ideas, as I said, philosophical ideas are all fighting against each other. Realm of religion, very clear. Christianity insists it's always the right one. Islam also insists the right one. Okay, so these are the attitudes. And religion, that the vital being of man is introduced in spirit and attitude of self-affirmation and struggle, and the use of violence, oppression, suppression. What's the difference between oppression and suppression? Oppression, you're not suppressing, but you're making the people suffer. Okay, you oppress them, but you suppress by violence. You suppress them. Difference is in intolerance, aggression. It has imposed the principle of life egoism on the domain of intellectual truth. Okay? There also you have differences of opinion. Okay, and the domain of the spirit. Now look at that. Even in the domain of the spirit, this thing is coming up. In other words, even in India, we have three different types of. There is the Advaita, there is the Dvaita, and there is the Vishishta Advaita. Even in the domain of the spirit also, this thing is coming in. Division, okay, and ego. Very subtle ego, but it's ego, nevertheless. Into its self-affirmation and self-asserting life. Sorry, I should read this in this way. Into its self-affirmation and self-asserting, life brings in hatred and dislike towards all that stands in the way of its expansion or hurts its ego. Life is always doing that. It brings in hatred and dislike. Okay? And all that stands in the way of its expansion or hurts its ego. All this explanation is to tell you the origin of evil and falsehood and suffering. It develops as a means or as a passion or reaction of the nature, life nature, cruelty, treachery, and all kinds of evil. Its satisfaction of desire and impulse takes no account of right and wrong, but only of the fulfillment of desire and impulse. For this satisfaction, it is ready to face risk of destruction and actuality of suffering. Okay? What you call martyrdom. Okay? You don't mind dying for the ideal that you believe is right. Okay? Martyrdom. For this satisfaction, it is ready to face the risk of destruction. I don't mind if I'm killed. And actual of suffering. Note interestingly how this ideal may be right or may be wrong, but in the case of, say, the South African leader, what was his name? I forget the name. He suffered prison life for 30 years. Okay? He was willing to suffer. Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, Mandela. 30 years he was put in prison and he didn't mind suffering that. Okay? So that is what you believe in something and you do it. But his case was extraordinary because after he came out of jail, there was absolutely no bitterness in him at all. That's a different thing. But it's a vital. Okay? It's the vital that does that. For this satisfaction, it is ready to face the risk of destruction and actuality of suffering. For what it is pushed by nature to aim at is not self-preservation alone, but life affirmation and life satisfaction, formulation of life force and life being. This is the nature of the vital. So clearly and with such power, Sridhar expressed the whole thing. It's a very, and he has gone into great detail to tell you how violent the vital can be. Not concerned with truth at all. It only wants satisfaction. That is the reason why desire is the greatest enemy of spiritual life. Get rid of desire. It's coming from the vital. You control the vital, get rid of desire, then you are on the right path. But the main problem of falsehood and evil is the vital. After a long discussion and search, he has found out the origin of the falsehood. So the origin is in the vital world, but in the evolutionary vital world, not the involutionary vital world. The involutionary vital world is something interesting. It is enjoyment, but not with ego. Okay? It is enjoyment. If you are in that vital world, in the what's called the typal world, you will get enjoyment. That's its nature. Enjoyment is the nature of that. But it is not tainted. It is not ugly. As in the evolutionary vital. The two ladders are parallel. Remember, he has told us that they are parallel. This is we spent a good deal of time on this because it's so interesting. Okay, so that's it. Then is the vital only bad? There's also something good in it. That he will discuss next paragraph.
Rangata,
Yes, tell me.
that sadhana layer, actually, I think ashram is not willing to give it.
Pardon?
Ashram is not ready to give it.
Ashram is not ready to give it up, but it is still undecided.
I mean, there is a court case which has been filed against the ashram. That ashram should not be able to give it.
No.
Just mentioning facts. I'm not telling my opinion. Just facts I'm saying.
I can discuss this with you in private.
No. So no, that's okay. Just this is a fact that there is a court case which has been filed against the ashram. That ashram should not
against us. Not against us, against the government.
No, Rangada, that the case is against the ashram.
Oh, that part I did not know. Okay.
No, you must not be knowing this. I know from the lawyers involved. Anyway, let's discuss it.
There is a court case also to stop the takeover by the government.
Yes, exactly. That is it. That is it.
That also is there.
Rangada, the case is that ashram should not, the case is that ashram should not give the land. That is the case.
Yeah.
The ashram wants to give and the ashram should not give.
I think Reddy has written a letter to the Prime Minister.
That all is going on. Many people have written and all that. But
Yeah,
the case is
to appeal to the Prime Minister that
and there are many many reasons, there are many opinions. So I'm not getting into all that.
Yes, it's
But
very complicated.
I'm just putting, no, there are many things involved in it. So I'm not getting into that. I was just putting out the fact, that information that there is a court case. That's what I was saying, nothing else.
But the ashram is not involved in any court cases as yet. It has not taken any sides.
Yes, rational. I agree exactly. There is a reason behind that also. Anyway, sometime maybe we can talk about it.
Okay.
you know what I feel, that Ram temple is good. But Sri Aurobindo is much more at a higher stage than Ram. Because not only did he have Sri Krishna in him, but even the supramental in him. So he's a higher avatar than Ram. And it is absolutely justified and a divine intervention that his relics should be there also in Ayodhya.
Jasmine, what you are saying is absolutely right. But what is this relation of the superiority and inferiority of the avatar with the actual territory? What is the relation?
Exactly. You can't
The two
tie
are
with plan.
connected.
Anyway.
Okay, okay. Yes. Okay, so
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Nagaraja.
okay.
Thank you, madam.
Have a nice-